Hi folks, welcome to Sorting Myself Out. My name is Brian Holsapple, and today we'll be reviewing and summarizing The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. This is a wonderful book. I'm going to start off with some non-spoiler generalizations, and then I will warn you all when I'm going to get into specific details, just in case you want to save the book for yourself. I'll let you know as soon as I'm going to start getting into spoilers. Let's start with general overview and review of the book. This is a fantastic book. Jonathan Haidt published this in 2012, and it's a great overview. It's very interdisciplinary. It takes a look at evolutionary and biological predispositions to why we believe and act the way we do, and also takes a further look at the interpersonal dynamics that happen between human beings. What binds us together? How do we come into groups and function as individuals within those groups? What makes us so groupish and what makes us individuals? So we take a look at how we function politically and morally within those groups and how we claim the beliefs and positions that we have as human beings. And Haidt does a fantastic job as a psychologist from a morality standpoint, taking a look at how do we develop these moral positions. And again, very interdisciplinary. So he takes from multiple different disciplines and is able to support his position in all these layers. It's a very convincing argument, not to mention a lot of his own research that's done by his team that includes these large-scale surveys that are very in-depth and very much empirical by nature that support his claims throughout this book. Jonathan Haidt is clearly a wonderful scientist, and I give this book an A because it took me on an intellectual and philosophical journey. It has convincing positions about morality and politics, and it helped me understand some of my own beliefs and some of my own moral inclinations, as well as deepening my psychological education. I highly recommend picking up this book. I'm about to get into some of the details, so if you want to save the rest for yourself, then go pick it up and read it. If you just want to learn it and hear it from me, then I will do my best to give you a summary, but it's not going to be a comprehensive overview. And of course, you can listen to what I got out of it and then read it for yourself and see what you get out of it. So the first thing that stood out to me in this book was that we create post hoc rationalizations for what we want to believe. We have what Haidt calls these moral intuitions, and these moral intuitions are urges, impulses, and compulsions to believe certain things are right or wrong, good or evil, and that is what really drives us towards making rationalizations for what we want. So we typically think that we reason our way into believing, but actually Haidt's research shows that we believe our way into reasoning. We use our intuitions to support what we really deeply want to believe. What are our urges? And these are things that are not intellectual, not rational. They don't necessarily make sense under that sort of scrutiny. These are things that are entirely unjustified when you take a look at it from a completely logical viewpoint. And so the way that we believe what we believe, according to Haidt, was never because we came to those beliefs by purely reason. It's because for whatever reason, our experience and our genetics and a combination of that nature-nurture phenomenon comes together to give us intuitions. And these intuitions make up our societal beliefs of right and wrong, our personal beliefs of what we value as human beings, and also our judgments towards others. And he really pokes a hole in our absolutes, that when we look at another human being and say, oh, well, they're just wrong about that, we think oftentimes that we have rational reasons and we really know why this other person is wrong. And we scarcely admit that we just want to believe what we believe on a basis of feeling, not on a basis of rationality. Now, that is not to say to Jonathan Haidt that rationality doesn't matter. He views the ability to reason and create rationale as a very important mechanism that can help us shift our intuitions towards perhaps more honest viewpoints that get us closer to some sort of truth. So he looks at rationality as the rider on the elephant. The elephant is what is moving us. The elephant is running the show, leaning in one direction or another when it comes to a political belief or a personal value. The rider is responsible for looking out on the landscape and saying, where are we headed? Why are we leaning in this direction? Let's see if we can justify this direction. Why might it be good to lean in the other direction? And rationality can start to steer the intuitive elephant in one way or another, but it does not assume that it is the elephant. So Dr. Haidt does a fantastic job explaining how our intuitions are what move us, and our rationality can justify and help reorient us in certain ways. Now, another way that our intuition can help us bond and get along with other people instead of fight with them is if we learn to relate to one another from a perspective of, I really want to understand this person, and I would like to see if I can put myself in their shoes. If we have a real authentic connection with another human being who believes something different than we believe, Jonathan Haidt argues that might help us create rational reasons that justify the other person's belief. Even if we don't ultimately agree with that person, we become more open-minded and open-hearted to seeing the world through their eyes because our intuitive elephant self has leaned in their direction enough that we can at least come up with a projection of what they might be experiencing. And he argues that if we do that more often, we would be better off. Now let's shift into the next part of this book. We'll talk about religion and what he calls, and group identities and things like that, politics, and what he calls human beings are 90% chimp and 10% bee. Now, in Dr. Haidt's estimation, yes, we have selfish genes. Yes, we are going through processes of survival of the fittest, and we want to propagate our own genetics in that way. And we also have genes that are devoted towards self-sacrifice and group belief structures. And he argues ultimately that is what holds moral systems together, and that is what holds religious structures together. And group functioning depends on the ability to put the group before yourself and to make specific sacrifices for the whole. And he looks at things like religious ecstasy or beautiful stories and examples of sacrifice for the greater good to kind of walk us through a journey of how, yes, while we have these chimpish instincts, we also have this beautiful hivish capacity that allows us to bind together as a group and work towards a cause that is much more altruistic than you might be led to believe by people who think that ultimately all we are is selfish. And so Haidt really does a great job explaining that yes, while we do have selfish aspects, we also have selfless aspects that lead us to be very susceptible to group identity. And that is one of the reasons why we are so hivish, why we can become group possessed and overly group oriented. We get caught up in these moral frameworks of reality that get reaffirmed by our environment, these echo chambers, as you might have heard them called. But while this can be criticized as a negative thing, Haidt also shows us how it's a positive thing that we are groupish because it keeps society efficient and functioning. We need each other. And if we do not have a moral framework upon which we can agree and relate, he argues that leads to entropy and societal and moral decay, and that ultimately things will start to fall apart. Now, while Haidt doesn't seem to position himself with an absolute moral value himself, what he does say is that morals are that which hold us together. And so he uses this great line, morality binds and blinds. So it binds us together and helps us function as a unit, but it also blinds us to other positions and makes us more hostile towards other groups. And so hence we have the fundamental chasms and divides between liberals and conservatives and libertarians and so forth and religious groups. It's because our morality might bind us within a group, but it also divides us and blinds us from the other group's perspective. So then he takes a look at, well, what is it about liberals and conservatives and these different moral intuitions that people have? And what he found in his research is that care and harm, liberty and oppression, fairness and cheating, loyalty and betrayal, authority and subversion, sanctity and degradation, these are the 6 foundations of morality. Care and harm go together, liberty and oppression go together, fairness and cheating go together, loyalty and betrayal go together, as well as authority and subversion and sanctity and degradation. Now, what he found is that conservatives are having a much more balanced commitment to each of these value structures. So when you look at the conservative intuitive mindset, they feel that each one of these foundations is important. When you look at the liberal mindset, they are more biased towards care and harm, liberty and oppression, and fairness and cheating. So that is what drives them. Now, he makes an interesting argument because he's essentially saying that, well, liberals are important and they often get accredited with being morally superior in our current culture. He kind of makes an argument that conservatives have a very justified and valuable position when you look at it from a survivability and efficiency and evolutionary perspective, that the ability to have these conservative values is actually good for people's wellness and well-being over the long term, whereas oftentimes the liberal values, although they can seem more righteous on the face because they seem like it's all about caring for the oppressed or the individuals who aren't getting their needs met, that ultimately the problem is that leads to more harm than good sometimes. He also grants that there are several situations where liberal regulations on harmful societal issues are very helpful. And he comes to the conclusion by the end that conservatives and liberals need each other, just like the yin and the yang of the ancient Chinese philosophy, that it's not that one side is right and the other side is wrong. It's that they are both essential to a systemic approach to running a successful and efficient society. And so he has this beautiful way of articulating that, yes, conservatives are more generalized in their value system and they are less biased towards one foundation of morality over another. Liberals also do a great service to society by making sure that things don't get out of control and become overly oppressive and overly unfair to certain individuals or groups within that society, and that he gives several examples of how that has been helpful and also how that can sometimes be harmful. The other thing that was really interesting was the research on the genetics of personality. He goes into how our genes wire our brains, and our genes actually, from a deeply rooted viewpoint, they strongly impact our political orientation and our personality development. Liberals and conservatives are not just conditioned to be the way they are, but they have genetic predispositions that really contribute to their ultimate political stances. So I think that that is something that is underrated in today's day and age. So anyways, I really enjoyed this book by Dr. Jonathan Haidt, and I strongly recommend reading The Righteous Mind. I will be doing more book reviews along the way, and I will be doing Anthony Stevens' Archetype Revisited. I'll be doing books by Carl Jung, Jordan Peterson, other scientists and philosophers, you name it. I'm going to continue to do some of these. So anyways, thank you. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and you will hear from me again at some point soon.